This introduction talk outlines the steps that are involved in moving forward with surgery. So we're going to have a video on each one of these steps that goes into much more depth. And this video kind of serves as an overview just so you understand all of the different components that are necessary before you get that surgical date and get yourself into the operating room to have this one of these procedures performed. So the steps are first you got to find a surgeon. The insurance issues surrounding bariatric surgery can be very complicated, and we'll spend some time discussing how all that works. Eating before surgery, and that's not so much your pre-op diet, but in the waiting period as you are scheduling and planning for your surgery, what should you be doing with your diet? And we obviously have entire courses in nutrition that address just this question, but we'll talk about how to use this time period strategically to ensure success after surgery. Emotional preparation, discussing your surgery with others. These are difficult topics and things that sometimes require you to spend a little bit of time thinking about something you might not want to or otherwise consider. And then finally, kind of a nuts and bolts preoperative diet discussion. First, why do we have to follow a pre-op diet? And then what are our options and how do we go about actually doing this? So when finding a bariatric surgeon, really, there's a lot of them out there, and in general, there's not a shortage. There are some medical specialties where you have to wait 6 months to get in. In general, in most locations, that's not true for bariatric surgery. Most surgeons, you can usually get a new patient appointment within a month or even shorter sometimes. So a lot of people want to find someone experienced. That is important, but it's more than just number of years in practice. It's how many cases they do, what their case mix is. Are they only doing sleeve gastrectomies? Are they only doing duodenal switch surgeries? Or is there more of a mix? And why is that important? Are they a member of the ASMBS, which is the American Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgeons? It's essentially the group that all the reputable surgeons will belong to. Geography, how far are they from your house? Are you willing to drive? How that works. And then the team, do they have a good nutritionist? How about their office staff and their insurance staff? And what's the general philosophy of this physician, and does it line up with what your philosophy is for going forward after surgery? When we talk about insurance, this is often the most stressful part of the whole preoperative process. And it sometimes turns into kind of this last minute thing where we're waiting on the last steps of insurance approval, sometimes a few days or even the day before your surgery. And we hate when it happens, but insurance companies have become increasingly difficult to deal with. And I'll give you some strategies for how to manage the supervised medical weight loss that's often required, and copays and deductibles, and how to figure out how much this thing's going to cost you, whether or not you're going to need a center of excellence and what that even means, and then how to check, double check, and triple check what your coverage is so that you don't get stuck with a bill or have a payment or financial issue after the surgery that you didn't see coming. So eating before surgery is really about practicing your diet for after surgery. And I like patients to spend those 3-6 months or sometimes even longer working on their diet, figuring out how this is all going to work afterward, and practicing shopping for food, preparing new meals, so that when you come home after surgery, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about, where am I going to buy the right food so that I can follow this post-op diet. And I'm not really talking about the 4-week post-op diet where we kind of gradually go from soft foods into more solid foods. I'm talking about a lifelong strategy for eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and beans, essentially the pound of cure eating strategy. And then whether you should try to lose weight or how important weight loss is prior to surgery. So emotional preparation, I think, requires two important components. The first is to really ask yourself, why are you doing this? What is prompting you to? What are your reasons for doing it? Is it, and I have patients often write themselves a letter, make promises to themselves. And something that I talk to my patients a lot about is that it's really important that at this moment right now, that we consider the future you, the you in 3 months, the you in 6 months, the you in a year, and we take all the steps necessary right now so that you in 6 months or you in a year is well taken care of. And so when we finally get there, 6 months later or a year down the road, that you've taken good care, you've prepared, and that person, that future you, is better and is making improvements. How do we set yourself up so that you can do that for your future self? And then also to set goals. And really not goals about weight loss. Everybody says, well, I want to be under 200, or I think 150 or 170, and that really is their goal. I don't look at that as the best strategy because, quite honestly, you're not as in control of that goal as you would be other goals. But things like activities, my goal is to fly without having the seatbelt extender or feeling like I'm interfering in my neighbor's space. My goal is to go on a roller coaster. Whatever that is, set a goal like that, an activity that currently you struggle with, that is difficult for you, that you hope to, after surgery, be able to do without difficulty, and kind of using that as your motivator rather than the scale. And coming up with habits. What are your goals in terms of exercise and physical fitness and lifestyle in terms of eating and nutrition and meditation and yoga and all these other things that we all know we can do to make ourselves healthier and better? How do we make promises to ourselves and set goals for ourselves so that when we do get there, that we are actually implementing these practices? And again, setting ourselves up for success. That's such a critical thing to consider as you're preparing for surgeries. How do I best right now set myself up for success in the future? What we want to make sure we avoid is setting yourself up for failure in the future by creating too many rules or unrealistic expectations. We want to make sure that we come up with things that you can do so that you will succeed. How do you talk to others? I think the first thing is be prepared for some negativity. Weight loss surgery is something that very few people know much about, but everybody has a very strong opinion about. And so be prepared for people to tell you this is the easy way out, or they had a friend who died from this, or that they would never ever consider anything like this. There's a lot of things that you're going to hear, and recognizing that not all of it's going to be positive, I think is important. And what I really urge people to do when they have conversations with others is ask themselves, where's this person coming from? Are they genuinely concerned for your well-being? Is there an element of jealousy? Do they have their own issues with their weight, and when they see you confronting yours, does it put them in an uncomfortable space when they look at themselves? How do all these things factor into this conversation you're having, and kind of flipping things and looking at everything you can from the other person's perspective is really critical before you go on and have that conversation. And that helps you kind of keep your emotions down and not overreact, and instead understand where are they coming from and how best can I address their concerns to make sure that they're comfortable with whatever my decision is. So finally, your pre-op diet, and this really is it's simple to do but hard to follow sometimes, and we want to recognize why it's important, what steps we need to take in order to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success with the surgery. And the truth is, a pre-op diet for most patients is probably not all that important, but for some patients it is absolutely mission critical. And we don't know that until we get into the operating room. And there have been many, many times when I've been a little bit surprised at how difficult a surgery was. And when I look back at that patient having lost 15 or 20 pounds before surgery, I think to myself, wow, those 15 or 20 pounds probably made a really big difference. And we got through that case safely, even though it was difficult, where had we been just a little bit further in terms of the amount of fat that we had to deal with, or the way the intestines stretched to reach where we needed to get them, if we weren't quite where we were, this could have gotten really, really dicey. So the truth is, it doesn't really matter, because most of these surgeries that we do are simple, straightforward, and not complicated. But we can be surprised. You can't always predict who's going to be easy to operate on and who's going to be difficult to. So we put everybody through this pre-op diet. And we'll talk about how you actually go about doing that. So the bottom line here, and what we're going to spend the next 6 or 7 videos discussing, is that moving forward with surgery really requires many levels of preparation and a good and thoughtful strategy to set yourself up for future success.